All right, hello Art One. This is the second video for our, excuse me, practicing the use of a grid on a photo. So remember, we made a very easy coloring book style picture that you picked out, and then you use the grid drawing website to add a 4x4 grid onto that photo, and you're gonna recreate this now on paper. I know not all of you have rulers, so I'm gonna show you two ways to make your grid. I normally, excuse me, would never recommend folding your paper, but in these hard times, we have to work with what we've got. So I will first show how to do the grid with the ruler, and then I'll show how to do it folding. So if you don't have a ruler, you can do it that way. So ruler, first of all, we're gonna do 1-inch measurements. Now, that's just to keep it easy for us. So as you can see on my ruler, it's clear. My 1-inch mark is right here. So I have a T-square ruler, which is really nice because you can line it up with the edge of your page and make sure that it's nice and straight. I know not all of you may not have a T-square ruler, so just, be cautious that when you are lining up your ruler, when you start drawing your lines, it's not crooked. So to make my 4-inch grid, I'm going to start by making marks at every 1 inch. So I'll make a mark at 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's gonna be a pretty small grid. I'm gonna do the same thing going along this side. So making a mark at 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so I have my marks going on the top so I can make those lines, and then my marks going across so I can make those lines. So now I'm ready to go ahead and draw my gridded lines. So again, having this T-square really helps me because I can press it down to the top of my paper, make sure my lines are gonna be nice and straight, but I won't use it. So if you don't have a T-square, this is how I would recommend doing it. I'll push this up a little bit so you guys can see. So I'm gonna line it up with that first mark. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make sure that the bottom of my ruler lines up with the bottom of my paper. I would know it's crooked if it's just slightly off like that, right? So I wanna make sure it's straight. So I'm gonna line the bottom of this ruler up with the bottom of my paper. And really take your time on this because it's super important that your grid is straight. Also, look at this ruler is a 1-inch wide ruler, so that kind of helps me too. I can see it lines up with my other mark. Now, when I draw grids, I don't usually press very hard because the goal is that you want to erase it at the end. So you don't want to make super hard dark lines because if you do that, then you're not going to be able to completely erase the grid when you're done, no matter how hard you try to erase. If you pressed really hard in the beginning, then it's gonna leave somewhat of a mark on your paper. So try not to press super hard as you're drawing. I know that can be kind of challenging. Some of us just naturally press harder when we draw, but it's something that you can work on. And I'm just going all the way to the bottom of the page, even though I'm not gonna need all that. So I'm gonna turn, because I like to draw towards me when I'm making grids. It's a lot easier. And I'm gonna do the same thing going in the opposite direction. Again, take your time. There is no rush. The better your grid is, the more accurate your drawing will be when you are done. And remember, this is practice. You are going to be doing a self-portrait next week. So that's going to be a more challenging version of this. Now, I'm seeing my lines on this are a little slanted. So if I were not making a video, I would probably redo those lines because I'm not happy with the fact that they're slightly slanted like that. But for the sake of the video, I'm gonna move on to the next step. I only need the grid. I don't need all this extra paper, so I can go ahead and cut this out. It's gonna be a pretty small drawing, but when we do our face, like our portraits, we can make our grids bigger. so that it's easier for you guys to get more detail. But again, the picture you're recreating is not super detailed, right? It's just a pretty simplistic coloring book page. So we're actually gonna be making it much smaller than the picture. Well, depending if you're looking at your phone, then yours is gonna be smaller than mine. So I have my 4x4 grid. All of the squares are the same size. Again, my lines are slightly crooked. That's bothering me quite a bit. So I would erase those and fix them so that they're straighter. Now, I need to show you how to do this without a ruler, because if you don't have a ruler at home, you can still do this. Now, fresh piece of paper. This is thick drawing paper. It came out of my sketchbook. I would use thinner printing paper if you have it. I don't have any thin paper at my house. So again, I have to work with what I have. It's a little bit, we're gonna fold to make your grids. It's a little harder to fold this thick paper, but I'm just gonna do the best I can and hopefully it will work out. Now the first thing I need is I need a square piece of paper, one that is the same height and width, but I don't have a ruler anymore. So a trick to getting a square piece of paper is take one corner, so have your paper in front of you, take one corner and fold it over to line up with the edge. Now I'm not actually gonna press this down and fold. I'm just gonna hold it there. And I'm going to make a mark where it meets the top. Now, I need a straight line right here. So we said we don't have a ruler, right? You can find anything in your house that has a straight edge. I have this little keyboard. I'm gonna use that to draw a straight line. Now again, it's gonna be a little challenging to make sure that it's totally straight up and down. So I'm gonna do the best I can. Let's keep sliding around. I think that looks pretty good. All right, so I've got my straight line now, and I'm going to cut this off. I don't need this anymore. Okay, now I have a square piece of paper. The width and the height are the same length. So I'm ready to start folding to make my grid. So I need 4 columns, right? So for folding, what we're gonna do is we are gonna fold this in half once. Now take your time with your folds because you do want this to be nice and straight. Now you're gonna press it down. And then you're going to fold that in half one more time. Now, if you have a ruler, I strongly encourage you to use the ruler because, like I said, I really don't like having to fold paper that we're gonna be making art on, but this is, a way that we can make it work with what we have at home. So I don't know if you guys can see this now, but I have my lines marked out and they're all completely even. I'm gonna turn my page and I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm going to fold it in half, making sure it's lined up before I crease. And then I'm going to fold it in half one more time. Ooh, this thick paper is quite difficult to fold, so hopefully you have some thinner paper at your house, because it does not want to, but I got it. All right, now I've got my grid on here, but it's a little hard to see, so I would want to draw those pencil lines in. If you have like heavy books or something at your house, I would go ahead and set them on top of that for about half an hour to an hour so it can get nice and flat. But for the sake of the video, I'm just gonna move on. Again, I'm gonna use my keyboard as my tool for drawing my lines. And I would line it up with my creases, doing the best I can to make sure it's nice and straight. And I would start drawing those on nice and lightly. Look, I'm barely pressing on the paper because I want those lines to be erasable at the end. Okay, and I would do that this way and then this way until I have my full grid. So those are our 2 ways to make a grid. The last thing I need to show you is how to get started on this drawing. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you guys can see what I'm doing. Although actually I changed my mind because now you can't see my screen. So when we do a grid drawing, this is super important, and I always tell students to work like this. Work from top, like as if you're reading top to bottom and from left to right. So start in the top left corner and go this way. Then next row, go this way. Next row, go this way. Do not skip around when you are drawing. It's super important that you draw the same way you read. That way everything goes in the right spot. So I will start up here. I am only paying attention. You can even zoom in. I would encourage you to do that because I don't even want you to think about drawing the whole image. You are thinking about, I am recreating what is in this box right here, in my square right here. So I'm looking, I have a curved line that goes like in and then up. I'm looking, it starts right about at the middle. So the middle right here. And then it ends in the corner up here. And I'm gonna take my time to try and recreate that as identically as I can. Okay, see that? That box is done. There is nothing else. Now I can move on to this box. I've got an arched line that starts pretty close to this little corner right here, and it goes a little higher than halfway up this box, and then just this half oval for the eye. Everything is all about placement with grid drawing, so really looking at where something is within the square, trying to put it in the right spot in your square. All right, we see that? Okay, that box is done. I'm gonna show you one more, and then I think you guys will be ready to try. All right, I gotta finish that half circle, and it comes, you know, pretty close to the corner right here. Not drawing too hard because I want to be able to correct things if I make a mistake. And then my other eye. But I'm only drawing the top half of the eye. I'm not drawing the bottom half because that is in the next row, and I'm not drawing that row yet. I am only drawing my top row first, then my second row. So that's it. That is your assignment for this week. It's gonna take you a bit of time because you gotta create the picture, gotta create your grid, then you gotta do the drawing. What I would like you to upload in Google Classroom is your photo with the grid on it. And then when you're done, take a picture of your actual grid drawing and upload that as well. All right, I will be live chatting with you guys at 11 o'clock Wednesday. And then again, we'll talk on Friday. So if you have questions about this, I can answer them. All right, have fun.